Cool. And we're ready. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
You're all the way, you said you're close to London, right? Like 45 minutes?
Kind of. It's Northamptonshire.
Right. So the other side, we're about a 5 hour time difference, I think. Yeah, it's interesting that you're from over there because a lot of the stuff we'll talk about today, all the very occult, spiritual, metaphysical stuff. There's a lot of that stuff in the UK, and
Mm,
there used to be a really great mystery school where a lot of people trained and studied, and a lot of magic over there, right?
yeah.
So to to start kind of the viewers off, people are watching, you know I think you said it maybe about 3 years ago, what sort of inspired all the spiritual stuff, the studies, what really drew your attention to it?
So I grew up as a very highly sensitive child, and I had all of these quite mystical experiences quite early on. Intuitive phenomena is like quite a common thing for me, and it runs in the family as well. Like my dad, he's got the same thing as I do, like this intuitive, like knowing, like when you experience a synchronicity and it's just like so mind blowing. It was just like that, but regularly in my family. So I already grew up with roots in mysticism as well, because my grandma, she's highly spiritual, and I needed help when I was really young to kind of ground myself. So I ended up meditating really early on, had a regular practice since I was 12 years old, and just the things that I would experience, especially around the ages of like 15, 16, like really highly intense. Like I had a astral projection experience when I was 16 years old, and when you experience something like that, and there are just no words for it really, and it really triggered just this whole rabbit hole of discovery, and it's just so magical, all of these teachings, and just trying to work out like my place in it all as well, because when you're experiencing all these things, it's like
You have no idea what's
so
going on.
intense. Yeah, like it's just trying to like process it, I
Were
guess.
your When you were having these experiences when you were a child, like, were your parents supportive and understanding? Like, were they able to guide you through it? Or what was the conversation like back then?
100%. So my dad, he like this, he has this phenomena happen to him quite regularly as well. And me and him, we've even shared phenomena together. I've had it where he's had the front end of a dream and I've had the back end of a dream in the same night. Like
Oh, that's
he
cool.
called me once and he said, Misha, I just had the craziest dream. It's a bit dark, but he had a dream that him and my brother got caught up in a tsunami. And that exact night, I had a dream that I was at a funeral with two graves, and that like I couldn't work out who it was, but it like I just knew it was someone close to me. It's just things like that that happen quite regularly. And so he also grew up in a very, very notoriously haunted historic house. And him and his brothers experienced all kinds of things there. So he was very like open and gave me advice like how to handle this kind of sensitivity because it is strange, and of course, I mean, if you don't know what it is, you're not gonna understand what it is at all.
Yeah. Do you remember how old you were when it started?
Pardon?
How old were you, like, when you first had like a few experiences?
So I had some mystical experiences when I was 12, but it got like I had more intense experiences from the ages like 14 to 16. And so my mum, she reached out to a psychic to help, and she taught me more methods to help me. Yeah, like I remember I used to play games with my friends. I used to see like, guessing games because, this was so exciting to me. Imagine being a teenage girl and you're told like you've got this thing and it's just fantasy, like, and it's just Like, how do you, make sense of that? And I used to play these games with my friends, and I used to pick up on the most crazy things from them. Um,
Just like intuitively
like,
knowing whatever. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's interesting that, a lot of people I talk to, if they don't have the right support or maybe their parents don't have an understanding of this stuff, they have these experiences. I personally feel like most people have these experiences early on, but then they try to force them to kind of shut off because it can be overwhelming, it can be too much, and they don't know how to channel it properly. But it sounds like you almost like leaned into it and were able to channel it the right way to enjoy it and like actually get something out of it.
I'm very, very blessed with all the support that I had.
But when last week, when we had the phone call, you said you really dived into the books and different sacred geometry and stuff, right? And that was just like 3-4 years ago or so. Were these? Did you know that stuff was available like when you were a kid too, when you were a teenager, or did that come later on?
So I think I connected more to sacred geometry when I think 16, 17 maybe, but I don't know how to describe it. I just had this sudden urge to, read up all about it, and I got, the quadrivium. You know the quadrivium book? It's full of all like sacred geometry, like kind of knowledge as well.
No, I haven't heard of them.
Yeah, no, it's fun read. Well, actually, it's not that fun. It's quite like
Dense.
mathematical, but
Yeah.
I think just I got such a strong sense of this underlying order, but like it was hard to put my finger on. Like I just connected to it really strongly.
So, just are you saying order is like understanding kind of the order of the universe and how things, kind of this crazy universe, makes a little bit more sense than we realize?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's cool.
100%.
Do you have any, because a lot of your content I love your content because I wish I could make content not talking and get as many views like that.
Oh, it's
But
perfect for me.
you highlight a lot of, yeah, I know we have you talking now, right? But you highlight, I see you highlight a lot of, obviously hermetics. You show the Kabbalion all the time and different magical books. Are there any sort of like favorites that you tend to study more? Like it's more sacred geometry, more magics, more just different philosophies?
So I do love the Kabbalion. Like I'm always reading that. It's like something I always refer back to. I feel like every time I read it through, like I get something new from it, and like you can't say that for many things. Like there's always something in there that's relevant to me at the time. Um, but yeah, hermetics in general, like I'm getting into in regards to like esoteric knowledge. I'm reading the Tibetan Book of the Dead as well at the moment. It's a really like heavy read. Like I'm really trying to dive into it at the moment because when you see it was never really I couldn't imagine myself getting into the topic of religion or like these ancient sacred texts like years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But when I saw a glimpse of like the value in them and the richness and the depth, and I realized, like, hang on a second, of course they have this knowledge. They didn't have all of these distractions like we do today.
Yeah.
They have such incredible experience of the subconscious mind, and you see this in the symbolism and just even the architecture and like it's just something I was never aware of before, and it just really inspired me. And
Yeah,
I'm
that's a good
obsessed with
point
it
because
now.
it makes the sort of day to day, the mundane life a lot more magical. Because once you see kind of behind the veil of just day to day life, you go, oh, there's those little pieces. There's a sacred geometry. It shows up in the architecture. It shows up in music and the way art. And all, you tap into those more subtle pieces, and I think with that you can obtain more. You can deepen your experience of life in general, but you can also obtain more power from that, right? And take that and put it into our own creations as well. Yeah,
Mm,
I think that's one of the special pieces is infusing sort of like we were saying before the call, right? It's how do we take this complicated stuff, because when you read these books at first, there's a lot of light bulbs go off, but there's also a lot of confusion because it's the first time seeing something differently. So like when I started reading, these different books, my brain would hurt and I'd read like a page at a time and feel like it would take forever to really absorb this information. And yeah, because it definitely, it confirms a lot, but also challenges a lot of like how we just live like a day-to-day life, right? What we accept as normal, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
100%.
And yeah, what was I gonna say? The Kabbalion, I think, where people, when you, a lot of those books are written, there's the energetic piece that it's hard to understand because the energetic piece is understood by actually like doing the thing, right? So the Kabbalion, for example, it's these governing principles. You can take mentalism, right? It's like the all is mind. So, we live in the mind of God, and our life is a creation of our sort of mental projection as well. But once we actually apply those, we see real living examples of that stuff, right? We see kind of the polarity in life. We see the rhythm. We see cause and effect. We see where all these energies overlap to create this sort of like universal structure. Almost, like you were saying before, it's like once I started studying this stuff, I saw more structure in life, right? It's more divine structure than it is just regular structure, right?
100%. It just completely affirmed my way of thinking. So, like, the way my mind works, like, I am quite aware of, like, the phases that I go into and all of my cycles and everything. So, like, they're always, like, there's the good, there's the bad, and it, like I've
Yeah.
got a timeline in my mind, and there's a line here, and I'm always somewhere, like, on this graph, and when I'm down here, I'm like, oh, it's okay, because I'm gonna be, like,
Out there.
here. Like, it's very, like
Organized.
charts in there, basically. And just the, in the Kabbalion, the, what, it just, I don't know how to describe it.
Well, you can, like exactly how you said, you can gauge where you are in life, right? You can understand when you can have foresight into, it also gives you like foresight into the future and astrology and all these tools. Because okay, hey, if I'm in a kind of downward spiral, if my rhythm is kind of a negative swing, then what do I have to do to correct that, right? Because it gives you more than just, the principles are there to give you understanding of where you are, but it also gives you an ability to raise to where you want to be, right? Like the law of vibration, you can understand if you're in a lower, denser energy. Okay, if I am in stress, fear, a negative state, but I want to be in like peace, love, joy, it's like, what's the difference there? And you can gauge where you want to prime yourself, set your energy, and set your day, right? I was just talking to somebody earlier about that. I said the cool thing about these tools is if I want to have a bad day, I can have a bad day. If I want to have a good day, I can have a great day.
No,
And
100%. It's
it's like
like
when life,
trusting there's that on the other side.
yeah, there's the other side, but it's like it puts you at the center of your creation, right? So you get to set yourself where you want to be. And I think actually in hermetics, to law and vibration, it's like your positive swing, your negative swing. And it's like if you want to stay in the negative swing or positive swing, you can position yourself there, right? Because then when things are going negative, you can just put more energy into keeping it towards the positive side and position yourself there. So you don't get, it takes you out of that yo-yo effect or that kind of stuck feeling in life where you can say, hey, if I can see what's going to happen, I can work against it to keep it positive and keep it growing, right? Or
Mm.
and it's cool to see. There's a video on YouTube about really Hollies all overlap, which is cool, and cause and effect, right? So it's like cause and effect is different levels of causation. So the higher levels are the cause of the lower levels. So if we're say at level one, we're at the effect of level two. So to have cause over level one, we have to rise up to level two and so forth, right? And that's like what a spiritual path will do for you, is it brings that higher level of being, of awareness, of consciousness to be able to have effect over those lower realms, so you can have mastery over those realms. We're not just stuck in those things, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I
So it's
get what
all,
you're saying.
yeah, it's almost like a roadmap to have a good life once you understand that stuff.
Yeah,
Because
no,
yeah,
100%.
most people are at that base level of effect, and that's why life is always happening to me, and it's a good day, it's a bad day. It's like once we once we raise our vibration and progress that way, then we're at those higher levels and we look down, we're like, oh, okay, that's where I have to do this or that. And then you just have a lot more power there to live the life
Yeah,
you want.
like when you know how to like use what's coming at you and take that and turn it inwards.
Yeah, transmute it.
Yeah, 100%. And then you're always growing and expanding your awareness.
Yeah.
And it's like life becomes a different set of games. That makes sense?
Yeah, it becomes, I mean, life becomes more enjoyable, right? Because you have,
Mm.
I think that the number one thing these tools and this knowledge gives you is more power. And, you know, it can be very intimidating for people because if you're talking about, metaphysical occult, these ancient teachings, a
Yeah.
common people might look at that and be like, oh, that's something bad. And yeah, you can use anything for good or bad, honestly, right? You can use a hammer to build something or hit somebody with, right? It's the same thing with these tools. If you use them responsibly, you can create a lot of good in your life and you can, help a lot of people with these. So they are very good things. And I definitely like how more and more people are adopting it. It's becoming more of a normal part of life
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, you're just tapping into more universal structure and truth and principles, right? And a lot of people that are stuck in life, they're stuck because they don't have clarity, right? That's why,
Mm.
meditation, these other tools, it helps empower them and give them clarity. And then they go, oh, okay, now I know what to do next. I think
Mm.
that's the biggest benefit of these teachings because they can look very, if you say spiritual to somebody, the word spiritual is very broad. I get people asking me all the time. It's like, is it, if I say I'm a spiritual guide, they say, do you guide people through like psychedelics, like this, like all these other external things? I said, no, the
Mm.
most spiritual thing you can do is to empower yourself, to build your own power. And all these tools and teachings are for that, is to build that individual power and discernment so they're able to live a life in joy and, discern between right or wrong so they're not falling into these traps all the time.
Mm. 100%. Like
Connecting
giving
to,
life
was that?
its own meaning. Like giving your life its own meaning. And
Yeah, yeah,
also
yeah, exactly.
just having the freedom to like give it your own meaning. Like when it comes to religion, it's like
It's kind of like their meaning. It's like they're telling you how your life has to be.
yeah, and everyone's so scared of new age, or there's all this like stigma around it, but actually, like it's just freedom, and it's utilizing this
I think
this
if you
game.
look at sort of the polarity between religion and New Age, because there's an in between too. Religion is very, very strict, very dogmatic. It's like there's a very thin line you have to walk, and if you step out of line, you're bad. You're just, it's all this kind of shame and stuff there too, right? It's a very narrow path that says, hey, everybody has to be this way. In New Age, the way I look at New Age is kind of just like hippie, woo woo, kind of like irresponsible, like, oh, this thing's gonna solve. I don't have to solve the problem myself, right? And I think in the middle, if you get to like a true spiritual path, or you go back to the, ancient teachings, it all teaches personal empowerment, right? So you're not stuck in somebody's system, but you're also not in this way too loose system where you can't create anything either way, right? It sort of blends it, it's the polarity of those almost, where it gives you a structure, it gives you these teachings and principles, the hermetic principles, right? To almost like guardrails, right? So you can kind of bounce back and forth and have these different experiences. And through that, you gain the wisdom because it's like part of who you are. It's a direct experience, you know. I think
Mm.
what religion does is religion takes away that direct experience because it says, hey, you have to, it's more compliance and not direct experience. And the new age, kind of the woo woo, like hippie side, is lacking responsibility, right? So it's like too much structure, not enough structure. So a true spiritual path lets you kind of bounce back and forth in between so you can really learn it yourself.
Mm. Yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah, that's why when somebody's like, "Hey, do you do like psychedelics?" gets brought up a lot, and I'm like, "No, that's not spiritual. That's very irresponsible, right? If you want power, you need to take responsibilities. That you need to say like, hey, this is my life, and this is what I want to create and do with my life, and there's a path to achieve that."
Yeah, I've never tried psychedelics before,
Yeah, it's good.
and when people do, they have like just such intense experiences, and I've actually it really surprises people that I've not, because I've done so much research on it. I've done so much research into Terence McKenna and all of this stuff because see, I found out about DMT in the body and in the lungs and how, at the end of our life, our body releases all this DMT and it just because of how intense the experiences that I had with astral projection, it really intrigues me. Because like I remember when I experienced it, I was like, yeah, this could work as a really intense psychedelic experience because it really felt like that.
Well, I think you're a perfect example, right? Because you can have the experience. People are going to psychedelics because they want a kind of out of body experience. They want this divine experience. They want to connect with themselves. They want to connect with God. And I think exactly like what you just said. It's like you've already had these experiences or better naturally, psychedelic free. Like you're a good example of like it is possible, but the difference between you and those people is they don't think it's possible. So
Mm,
they're almost like hijacking that experience. And when you hijack something, if you take like a drug, it's like you get shot up to this level and have this experience, but then you smack down to reality because there's not an actual foundation there. So somebody like you're like, hey, if I want this experience, I know how to astral travel and project myself, do all these things, and it's just part of who you are. So you can access that drug free anytime, you
yeah,
know,
they catch me in the club, like,
just laying there, just
yeah,
blast it off. Right? Yeah. That's cool because a lot of people don't believe that. They don't believe that those things are possible. So they say, "Oh, I have to." It's unfortunate because the psychedelics does a lot of damage to your energy system. I had somebody the other day. She said, "Oh, I'm going to go do an ayahuasca trip," and I was like, "No, no, 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 do not do that." Like, because it's very. I see the draw with people because most people that are stuck or stressed or suffering in life, they want to feel something, so they want that thing that's just going to really rattle them. All right. So they seek out these things because they think that's the only way to do it.
yeah.
And
And
then,
I was gonna say, when you don't do it naturally, or when you don't have strong enough of a mind and you're not grounded enough in reality, you don't know how to integrate these experiences that you're having properly. And this is how people get sent into psychosis. Like, I've seen it so many times. It's devastating. People get so lost in this world, like they just don't know what to do with this knowledge.
yeah, because it shoots you out of your energy body too. So it creates so much damage. But like I was saying, it shoots you from like level 1 to 100. And exactly what you said, they don't know how to integrate it. Somebody who has the tools, has the power themselves that can have those experiences like naturally by themselves, they have the foundation. So they can go up to those levels and maintain those levels and actually bring that back into reality to, maybe they learn something there and they can actually make it very tangible, right? Because
Mm,
everything there's in the spiritual community there's the people that are very spiritual but they're very ineffective here in the physical world, and this physical world is a spiritual experience in itself. So you need both of those dimensions, right? So
you
it's
just,
we the purpose of astral travel and the meditation is to reach higher levels of consciousness so you can study a better, more higher refined way of doing something. You can bring that into reality and uplift our experience here. That's why a lot of the great like leaders, artists, inventors. That's what they did. They were students. They were initiates in these mystery schools, these spiritual schools with these ancient teachings, and they were able to actually do that. So if you look at a lot of this, like Michelangelo or Leonardo da Vinci, they're bringing in very sacred pieces to their artwork to uplift kind of our experience here, right? Or like Nikola Tesla, you were talking about sacred geometry. He was
love.
he was highly trained in sacred geometry, and that's what a lot of people don't understand. And for me, I think our experiences are similar or different. I was having experiences as a kid, and I didn't really understand it, but I didn't have the support like you did to develop it earlier on. But for me, I was always curious of like, okay, well, how did these very good, successful leaders in the world, these people, how are they able to create the level, like this insane level that they're able to do? So that was what inspired me. And it wasn't until I was in my early 20s where these worlds kind of met, where I was like, oh, well, these were the experiences I was having, and this is, these creators and leaders, they were having those same things, and they actually studied in the school, and they were able to develop those gifts that they had, right? So
Yeah, 100%. I think it's the whole process of getting that vision and that feeling. It's like it becomes a feeling first. You focus on the feeling, it becomes an emotion, and then a vision, and then you focus on the vision, and it becomes words. It's like this whole process, and I feel like it's this process that's so important and so useful as well. Like, if you don't know how to integrate that experience in your day-to-day life, then you can have the most amazing knowledge and the most amazing connection, but if you don't know what to do with that, then, what's it for? How will it help you?
yeah, at the end of the day, it's just you can. I mean, dreams can become a reality, but like you were saying before, you saw a structure. All these dreams and these spiritual experiences need a structure. Actually, there is a structure. This thing, I don't know if we can see it on there, but that's the tree of life,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Kabbalah, that's exactly what it is. It's a structure to create, to take the infinite and channel it through these sephiros to actually go to manifest in the physical. And that's what, that's another thing that's important with this stuff is, beyond just these high spiritual, amazing experiences, how can we actually bring the magic in and bring that energy into the world to uplift whatever we're doing, right? So we need that structure. That's another thing with, I guess we'll cross in hermetics and everything, but it's another thing with polarity. You need the force and the form together. It's the masculine and feminine energy coming together to be able to like birth something into the physical, right? So if we just have that high kind of amazing spiritual experience, we don't have that structure, then it's useless. It might just be
Mm,
a fun dream or a fun experience, and then things just stay the same. So that's why,
yeah, so true.
that's why this stuff can be very practical, because there is a divine order to everything, and it's a lot more subtle than people imagine. So they say, oh well, a lot of people kind of pull off the spiritual stuff is crazy or whatever, because it's like if they can't touch it or see it, it can't be real to them, right?
Yeah,
I always like to use it. What's that?
I was gonna say, like, it's something you really have to slow down to be able to see because it is so subtle.
Yeah, exactly. Energy is very subtle, right? So I had this problem before is if you have a very active mind, you're always busy, busy, busy. It's something guys tend to do. Women are much better at, tuning into the energy of things. But if you're always busy, your head's always focused on kind of physicality and stuff, you're missing a lot of experience. You're missing a lot of the essence behind the thing that's actually creating that thing, giving you that more full experience of it.
Yeah, yeah,
Because I think women
100%.
are very good at tuning into the energy. Like, women, like I was saying, like women sit higher spiritually. So you guys can see, you guys are like supercomputers. You can see many potentials. You can reach way further. And the guys are we're good at one thing at one time.
Yeah, I did some research into this. I am gonna have to look over my sources again, but I'm quite sure that because of, childbirth, like the pineal gland, the more active it is, like the third eye pineal gland, house of consciousness.
Yeah.
So the pineal gland in women, it's actually got these two tubes and it connects to our ovaries and it's in control of hormone regulation. And in my mind, that's like it's more active then. Like
And
it
then
makes sense to me.
is it the pineal gland or pituitary gland? Because your
I think
pituitary
it can be
gland's connected to your hormones. That's what kind of produces them.
very different.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. Yeah, they're different. The pineal gland and pituitary gland are different, but there's sort of similar function in some ways, but I'm not sure how all that connects. I'm a spiritualist. I'm not a scientist. But yeah, I got to look into that. That'd be yeah. But I think think of it like think of where women sit, right? Without women, there's this whole kind of masculine feminine stuff going on. But like with women, nothing will be birthed into the world, right? So women are this like divine vessel, because we couldn't even be here without women. Like if our mothers didn't give birth to us, then none of this would exist, right? So yeah, looking at things sort of taking a step back and looking at things of like, okay, what's behind here? What's the source of what's being created? You gain a lot more. I don't know if it's not insight, but like, yeah, I guess insight, a deeper understanding of like why things are how they are. Right?
Mm.
There's a lot less confusion and arguments. Did you ever read the book? Was it Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus?
You know, I have been told to read this book so many times,
It's
but
a good book, yeah.
I've never got around to it.
But I think that's a good example. We have a class in the mystery school. It's one of my teachers teaches. It's called Divine Hermetic Communication. So it's talking about divine masculine, divine feminine, and those aspects and essence behind that, and how those work together, and kind of start the high spiritual aspect of those, and all the way down to the biological, the physical aspects. And when we're able to see it that way, it becomes more clear because we understand sort of men try to get women to think like men, and women try to get men to think like women, and it will never work that way, right? So there's always disagreements. Once you actually understand who you are and who they are, then you can actually come together and work together a lot better. Then stuff actually gets done, right? There's a lot less
Mm.
confusion and disagreement.
I saw this diagram that really connects to, and do you know, like the Fibonacci spiral? And then there's the box around, so there's the curl, and then there is the boxes like here, and like this is the masculine way of thinking, and then this is the feminine. And
Yeah.
although like they are like they're very different, they still meet at the same points. And like I don't know, it just the like we'll never be able to understand the nature. So I'll never know what it's like to think like a man, and a man will never know what it's like to think like a woman. But
I agree. Yeah, there's aspects to, because it's not just the physical aspect of that. There's the sort of the virtues behind it, right? Because another thing in Kabbalah, like I was saying, right, you have the feminine pillar and the masculine pillar. It's gonna be hard to light, but you have either that's feminine, that's masculine. So to have these in balance, these, if one is kind of blocked or distorted or out of balance, energy can't flow through properly. So that's why men and women having both, ideally hermetically, it's 70%. A man would be 70% masculine, 30% feminine, vice versa. 30% or 70% feminine for a woman, 30% masculine. Yes, I will never know how to be a woman, but I could tap into those levels of consciousness to develop those virtues of, there's like trust, communication, boundaries, understanding, those more feminine aspects. I'm able to balance out my energy as well.
mm,
It's, same thing with women. Women still have masculine qualities in some way, right? Like taking action, doing all these things. But yeah, I love how you say that, right? Because it's like, I don't believe I can never teach a woman how to be a woman. I don't believe women should be teaching guys how to be a guy. I see that on social media sometimes. There's
mm,
like these woman coaches telling men how to be men, and I'm like, you've never walked in those shoes. Like, how could you share that, right? I think it's
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's definitely wise. And are you, when you're working with your clients, are you leading them to these experiences as well? Do people come to you with like the questions of, hey, I had this crazy experience or projection?
Yeah, so a lot of what I like to do, so I like to create meditation scripts to personalize the experience for my customers. But sometimes, like one of the fun things I like to do with them is if there's something they feel stuck with, or when you just feel like there's something like calling you in and you're not sure what it is. I like to take them into a journeying meditation, and it's very like dreamlike, very like all of these symbols and themes come up. So it's basically playing with the imagination, and from what you interpret from these symbols and these things that happen, it can be like a bit of a psychedelic movie. Sometimes these experiences. Um, from this, you can actually like gauge a lot of like inner wisdom from like interpreting these symbols after. Um, and these experiences can feel very deep as well. They can feel very intense. And I Yeah, like I've had a few intense sessions like that, but they're always just so transformative and they bring so much to light. Like honestly, the things you can do with the meditation practice, like it's incredible.
Yeah, I used to kind of not value meditation as much because it was like, what
Mm,
do you mean? I can get all these things by doing nothing? Like it just seemed too simple, right? Because it wasn't, as a guy, I'm kind of like, well, what's this going to do for me, right? I just want to get like a result right away. And it's not until you tap into the subtleness, or like you're saying, when you're having these experiences, there's symbolism, and there's like, it's almost like life is, there's all these clues laying around, whether we're aware of them or not. And the more we tap into these and the symbolism and all this stuff, we find these clues. It's like this treasure hunt, and then that develops our inner guidance, which ultimately develops, who we are as an individual, right?
And a fact I love is that the subconscious mind is actually smarter than we are. It's wiser than we are. And so when you allow yourself to be present and turn inwards, you have this communication with this wiser part of yourself. So
Was it
any kind of,
the? Do you mean the subconscious or the? Are you talking about like in the mind or like beyond the mind, like the?
I think the lines blur a bit.
Yeah, it is. Well, there's always different
Yeah.
ways of saying things. I would say once we become more conscious, we become more aware of what was unconscious. What we kind of, because we sort of have this, when we're not really conscious, we have this like small limited life, and there's all these other things happening around us that we can, tune into to gain power, to gain wisdom, to advance in life. So it's as we expand our consciousness, because our subconscious tends to be that thing that like, or the purpose of our subconscious is to like keep us alive, right? So it has all our fears, all our limitations, because it says no, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that, because it wants to keep us protected, which can become a limitation. That's why it's easy to dip into the negativity and the programming and stuff, because it's kind of hardwired into us. But as somebody uses tools like meditation and energy healings, all these other things, it's your consciousness expands, and you tap into the higher mind that goes beyond just like our physical brain, right? It's the
Mm,
like the universe. I think that might be what you're saying, like the universal mind that we're not
yeah. If you
aware of
go
yet.
deep in, you can go to like collective unconscious experience, which is more like universal mind, like you said.
Yeah, like collective consciousness.
Yeah, you can do a lot of amazing like reprogramming work as well with the subconscious mind, which is great for manifestation or just aligning yourself with visions and life where you want to step into.
Yeah, because you're reaching beyond. When you're meditating, when you're astral traveling, you're reaching beyond physicality. You're reaching beyond your limitations, beyond your fears, beyond your subconscious limits. So yeah, you can bring in those higher aspects. You can tune into those higher energies to transmute your current state to start. That's why visualization is so powerful, because you start tuning into the feeling experience before the thing even happens, and rewiring those neural pathways, and then that becomes your automatic function.
It's such a surreal thing, and like the possibilities that open up when you really understand that we do everything for the feeling, and pretty much everything that we think we know is rooted somehow in emotion, really, really deep down. And when you know how to like work with those emotions, you can really completely shift the foundations of your life, your
Yeah,
mindset completely.
that's the law of correspondence: as within, so without; as above, so below; as within, so without. Right. So it's like we said. I just told somebody that a couple hours ago. I said everything we do in life is for the feeling. Every time there were somebody who has a business, and they offer some type of coaching, and so we have to realize with your clients is they're doing. It's not so much about the thing you're selling; it's about the feeling that they want. They want the joy, peace, happiness. They feel stuck, so they're coming to you. They think your system is going to give them those things, and yeah, it's going to help it. But ultimately, if you don't cultivate that inside, you're never going to experience that outside. That's why, that's why people have a hard time sort of changing their perspective, because we're so tuned into the physical. It's like when you start awakening and progressing, it's like everything gets flipped upside down. So it's very counterintuitive of what we were sort of led to believe like life is. And it's like, yeah, if you want if you want to experience love, joy, abundance, you have to cultivate that inside. You got to cultivate the energy and the feeling, and then you see sort of the manifestation, or it's almost like a holographic universe. It's like when you become the thing, you experience the thing.
Mm.
It makes life more of a game than some, just stuck suffering that a lot of people can get drawn into.
Yeah, so many people like they try to look out here for what does the inner work, you know. I
Yeah.
think that's so funny. Like you think you want, you know, like for me personally, I live very symbolically. So when I do my skincare, for example, like it's not just a skincare. I'm doing it consciously because I'm like release, cleansing, you know, it's like I have these conscious things in my mind. I use it like that. But sometimes we find ourselves doing these things for these inner cravings that we have that we're not conscious of. Sometimes it's not about if the face mask actually works or not, it's about what it symbolizes. Sometimes it's not about how thirsty you are when you drink a cup of tea. Sometimes it's for the comfort, you know? And when you really deconstruct life like that and you can become conscious of all these little things that you do and why, it just, I don't know, it gives you so much more clarity and it helps you to refine your life in a way that works best with you and who you're trying to become and what aligns with you. I don't know if that.
Yeah, it brings more divine essence into every part of life. There's more, everything becomes a spiritual experience. Like you're saying, it's like when you're doing your makeup, it's not just to do your makeup, it's to develop the essence of that thing, right? It's just like because like you said, everything we do is for feeling. So yeah, it's really bringing the sacredness into every part of life to make every experience more special, right? So it's not just, oh, I have to drive here, oh, I have to, just, you don't just do things just because, right? There's more intention behind it. There's more, there's a deeper experience. You don't just throw on, sweatpants just to go wherever, right? You actually dress, you actually take care of yourself, you actually respect yourself. It's a reflection of how you feel about yourself, right?
I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not always constantly like wired like that.
Sometimes in sweatpants, none of them.
But yeah, you know, it does make life feel richer when I do
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah, I think it's a great example. It's like these tools have you tap into energy to bring that into your life. So then the whole experience of life is a lot more uplifted. It's a lot more sacred. There's more magic. Um, more miracles are possible to happen too. Right. The things you never thought were ever going to happen are now able to happen because you're more in tune with this stuff. Right. Everything's an energetic result. So, you know, the current energy we have now is our current reality. Right. It's like as we're able to bring in new energy and raise our energy, then we get to experience it. That's why people go, "Oh, this is a miracle," or "This is," they can't believe that thing would ever happen. But this is, there's an actual process and framework for these things to actually happen. So it's not like, oh, I had going back to the good days, the bad days. It's not just random like, oh wow, it's a good day, it's amazing. It's like every day could be like that and much more.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like it's the bad days are equally as valuable though, sometimes.
Yeah, there's lessons in everything.
True. True.
Like we are saying, it's like tapping into when you have more awareness, and you can see things for what they truly are, and not for, you can take something out of everything, right? So even the bad days, you're constantly learning because we're here to learn and grow and progress, right? So everything should be supporting that. Everything is a lesson in that direction of our progression. So if we feel like we're disconnected to that, we're not at the center of what we're able to create, yeah, then we become sort of a victim of life. Why is this thing happening to me? Rather than the other perspective is, what can I actually do with this? How can this help me become stronger? How can this, be a part of what I'm trying to create ultimately? How can I transmute this kind of the alchemy and all? How can I transmute this situation into something good? Because we're constantly we're constantly doing that in our day-to-day life. If we sit there and we do nothing, life just happens to us, and it's probably going to be more bad than good. But if we can take those opportunities and transmute that into a better thing, then that's how we can stay in those higher realms all the time.
100%.
But
And
it's,
mindset really is everything. Like
yeah,
it is so
mentalism, right?
basic. It's so basic,
It
but
shouldn't be,
like the dimensions to it are. just.
Yeah, it's like we don't have to know everything at once. The cool thing about progression is every time you progress and expand in consciousness, you realize there's so much more. Every single time, you're like, wow, I thought I knew something, and then there's just so much more, which it becomes more intriguing each time. But yeah, that's why the first hermetic principle is mentalism, right? Because without control over our mind, we don't have control over those other principles, you know?
Mm,
And yeah, it's like anything anything that is true shouldn't be too complicated. It's like people end up complicating things way more than it needs to be because, we have all this excessive emotion or perspective or opinions of how things should be rather than like, the higher aspect of those. So I would say we get in our way more than anything else in the world.
yeah, yeah, it's true. But then,
And was that,
like, there are dimensions of truth, though. It gets quite, I don't know, mental after a while.
well, it's like, what is truth? I mean, you could look at polarity and say what's good and bad, right? It's all what we do with it, really. Yeah,
Mm,
there's
yeah,
there's
that's
there's
true.
there's both potentials available, but if we're at the center of what we're creating, we have to determine what's good or bad through our experience ultimately.
Mm.
What other, I mean, besides the Kabbalion, we've been talking about hermetics a lot. What other sort of metaphysical books or alchemical books or different books that have you connected with pretty well?
So I have one of my favorite books in the world is Memories, Dreams, Reflections by Carl Jung.
Oh yeah, he was an initiate in the mystery school.
Yeah, no way. But he just really goes like, I'm really interested in the psychology side of spirituality. See, people think that like it's me like trying to break it down and demystify it, but actually the deeper you go, like the more mysterious it gets. And
Yeah.
he had incredible insights about alchemy because he noticed in his psychotherapy students the symbols that would come up in their dreams and meditations. Look back and the same symbols are in the alchemical texts. Like that is so interesting. And this is the man that came up with, archetypes and all. Also, like in his own personal dreams and meditations, he would have these incredible synchronicities with the symbols that he saw and symbols in ancient cultures. So this is what really, really intrigued me and it got me into understanding symbolism. Like the more I understood this and, you know, just the significance of symbolism in religion and spirituality and, its role in alchemy, because the alchemists spoke in symbols, which is insane to me, because when you know that it's a subconscious language, like a very intuitive language, it's just the wisdom that they must have had to be speaking in symbols is insane. It's really insane.
Yeah, it's
But
it's interesting. You could say like, what is God? God is symbols, sounds, numbers, words, right? That's why words, for example, are so powerful because what we say, we create through what we say. So being
mm,
more in tune, kind of like you're saying, like how do you live your life is being more conscious and aware of the words we're using, right? Or the symbols or whatever. And it's cool, like you're saying, you can look at what got me interested in the symbolism of all this stuff is I was raised Catholic as a kid, but then as my later teen years, I realized I'm like, oh, we're all talking about the same thing. If you look into the symbolism, each religion uses the same symbolism in their different ways. So I was confused. I'm like, okay, well, we're all talking about the same thing. So what is that thing we're all talking about, right? Because religion to me didn't feel natural because it didn't make sense because okay, I believe this, you're wrong, I'm right, you're bad. There's wars, there's all this confusion at this like physical level. I'm like, why don't we just go up to the top and figure out what that is? And that's why I love like going back to Kawhi and again hermetic principles so much because it just gives clarity of like, okay, what actually works for all of us, regardless of what you believe, who you are, whatever it is, like what just works for everybody, regardless of all that. And it's like
mm,
then it's the same symbolism and all this stuff. You're like, okay, that's what that is. It's you know,
yeah, and the sacred geometry symbol, the flower of life. Like they found that, like it's just so mind blowing, especially when you know this is thousands of years ago when they had no means of communication. But this symbol is found in sacred sites all over the world in all these different religions. If that doesn't intrigue you, then like, come on, like that has to mean something, right? I don't know why people don't talk about this more.
Yeah, well, we don't understand why, but somebody's gonna watch this and be like, "Yeah, okay, whatever." This is,
Yeah.
yeah, but hopefully somebody watches this and it kind of sets off a light bulb. Like, oh yeah, okay, I can see what they're saying. Like, cool, it's cool. That might spark their spiritual path or them diving into this stuff as well.
Mm.
But yeah, like you were saying, it's like Carl Jung he was an initiate, and many people that are on a spiritual path, they don't understand that there are these spiritual schools to actually develop in this stuff, right? If you want to develop in sacred geometry, alchemy, hermetics, Kabbalah, all these, astrology, there's a school, or you could say like a spiritual university of sorts. They used to be all over the world. I think there used to be like 24 or 26. Now there's only 7 available. Only one, of course, is public. The other 6 are sort of hidden or invitation only because it's they've been there to be preserved. But yeah,
Mm.
this is like I was saying when I was curious of like, okay, how do these people reach this like high level of success? And look into the other information. They were students or initiates of these mystery schools, and they had the specialized training, and they were able to bring these high spiritual divine aspects into the world to create what they did. Because that's ultimately like the only thing that's going to move people forward is to bring in higher and higher aspects of that thing, to bring in more creativity, to bring in more of the divine essence, to uplift all that stuff. Right, it gets us
Mm.
out of that stagnant state.
No,
Yeah,
100%. And
yeah,
the clarity it gives you as well. How do I say? You know, as a Carl Jung quote I love, unless, oh God, I better not butcher the quote, until you make the unconscious mind conscious, it will direct your life and you'll call it fate.
yeah. And that could be hopefully good, but usually bad. There's a part in when I teach about the negative positive ego in my Empower Thyself class. It's the conscious, the conscious, the individual mind is sort of the divine part of you, right? It's the truth, the knowing beyond just the mind, just beyond the kind of limitation, all the crap we have stored in there, right? And then the ego and the subconscious is that limitation. It's that thing that you say, that first response is like, I know what the thing is, I know what the right thing is to do, but then your mind kicks in. It's like, okay, but we're going to do this, right? So a lot of people, it's very easy when they're unconscious. It's very easy for them to slip into that negative state, slip into a negative option. And when we're low energy, when we're tired, when we're stressed, it's just okay. I'm just going to do this because it's easier. It's easier, But they know what to do. There's that voice in the back of their head saying like, hey, like this is what you're supposed to do, this is the path you're supposed to take, but they don't want to listen to that. And that's another thing, like meditation and all. We work on I think we talked about this before, like your clairsentience and clairvoyance, clairaudience, all these sort of heightened senses, I call them like superpowers, your spiritual senses. Developing those all leads you back into your inner wisdom, so you're able to live in alignment, fulfill your purpose, self-actualize, connect more with God. That's really what the purpose of a spiritual path is, to heal yourself, fulfill your purpose, and connect with God. And through that, it's like then life just becomes this awesome experience.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, unless you really go into these deeper layers of yourself, like you just would never know. Like you would never know how good life can get. And it's I've heard people saying that being a highly conscious person or like aware person, having a lot of awareness, don't get me wrong, it can be really painful sometimes, like sensitive, and you're more sensitive to things. But like it's really good as well. At the same time, like it's worth it. It balances out. It's higher highs and lower lows basically. It feels like just a richer experience. And some people can get really like caught up on that in that from my experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you need proper tools and rituals though, because somebody who's highly sensitive, that's why there's different, if you study in a spiritual lineage, there's different rituals to learn, because a lot of people who are hypersensitive to energy, maybe they just don't have like a strong enough aura, maybe they don't have different energetic tools to protect themselves. So they're kind of letting all the good and the bad in. They feel everything, right? So it's good to, once you have understanding this stuff and have the tools and rituals to safeguard your energy, to protect your energy, to clear your energy, to call in energy, then you have a stronger filter, right? So it doesn't feel, because most people, they don't have the training, and they just feel everything. That's why I was saying, like, when people have these experiences early on and they don't have the proper context and tools to channel that properly, it can be too much. And if it's too much, they're just gonna like be like, no, it's not for me, right? Then it keeps
Mm,
them stuck. So it's like, if you have a proper guide or mentor to teach you this stuff, how to actually work with this stuff, then you can utilize it in the better way, and it's not going to be overwhelming. But yeah, I mean, like you said, it's like some people are maybe a little resistant to it because they might think it's like they don't want to be conscious, and it's like, well, because once you know something, then you have more power available to utilize that thing, because once you know something, you have the responsibility for it. So I see a lot of people who don't have, anybody who doesn't have, they're not moving forward, they don't have power in their life, it's because they're not willing to take the responsibility. And that's fine depending on where they're at in life. Maybe they're just not ready. Maybe they have to go through more things to create that desire, right? But I think that's really what it comes back to. It's like consciousness and power needs to be there's a responsibility connected to it, you know.
mm,
So a lot of people say, hey, if I have this awareness, I eventually I'm going to realize, like, oh, I'm creating all this crap in my life. Or I see people in relationships, they said, oh, like, my boyfriend or girlfriend, they're doing this, they're doing that. I said, no, you're the one that attracted them. You're the one that chose them. You're the one that's creating this. So it's like the best thing you can do is take responsibility, heal what you need to heal, uncover what you need to uncover. And that opens you up to the next better thing.
no,
So
it's
that's,
so true. You
yeah.
know, like whenever I feel like whenever someone disappoints me or I'm in a really low point, like of course it's terrible. I'm devastated, but there's always a part of me that's like breaking through, you know?
Right. That's the best part. That's why life, sort of what you said, it's like you might hit these lows, but you have higher highs, because you're like, okay, what's the lesson? Like, like, crap, what did I do this time? And then you like take responsibility and you actually see your part in it. And you can say, okay, cool. I did that. Let me fix this. Let me heal this. Let me do this another way. Let me seek out help, somebody who can help me develop this aspect of myself. And then you just move through life way faster. Right.
Mm,
So, sort of like what you're saying, I think we were talking about this, but it's like somebody's like, well, how do you have this wisdom like early on in life? It's like, well, you didn't just come up with the stuff. Like, you didn't just, come up with stuff yesterday and you're like, oh, this is, you're what anyone who's wise at an early age is tapping into stuff that's been around for forever, for thousands and thousands of years. Right. So the difference is like taking the responsibility and actually utilizing these tools, instead of just, because it's easy. It can be like, okay, I'm going to read, this magical book and do nothing with it, right? If we have this information, we don't actually apply it, then it's just kind of mind candy. It's just entertainment. It's like fascinating,
yeah.
but everything you're saying is like, take this and actually put it into your day to day life.
Mm. And something interesting that I figured out as well, I find people with high levels of spiritual knowledge, they've always experienced, most of the time, they've been through like the most insane pains in their life. And I find it really interesting that, occult and occult knowledge, like it just means hidden knowledge, right? It's like
Well, that's what
more
it is.
intuitive knowledge, and how in pop culture it's so strongly associated with the gothic community and then this psychedelic community as well. And I'm like, like what links these two together? And it's ego death, essentially, you know. And like if you've been through a lot of trauma in your life, I feel like that's like where like gothic kind of associations come in, like the
Like, people are like
struggling.
sad and like struggling.
Yeah,
Yeah, it could be
because
a,
in order to reach this level of knowledge, like your ego needs to be stripped so much, otherwise you're never going to be able to hear it out. if that makes sense.
Yeah, because I think what happens is when you go through tough times, you go through struggles, it sort of puts things on your plate and says, hey, what do we want to do with this, right? It opens you, tough times kind of blow pieces apart of us that it creates this like desire, this questioning. I think that's another thing it is too. It's like, why is this happening? And then or you feel weak and it creates a desire to become stronger. And this is what, the spiritual path ultimately does is it drives you forward to become stronger so you can have more good, more joy, more love in your life. So it really comes down to a choice, right? Because there's some people that like bad things happen to them and they choose to hold on to that and it just becomes a downward spiral. Or there's the people who are very spiritual, like you said, that these bad things happen and they question it. They say, why is it happening? What can I do? Or like, what else is there? And it creates room for them to step into that next level of, okay, there must be something else that I need to know or learn to progress. Right. And I say when somebody comes to me as a new client, I can tell where they're at and how well they'll do initially based off the level of the questions they ask. Like how deep are the questions? Are the questions just about are they self-serving? Are they trying to figure out like who they truly are, why they're here, like what they're supposed to do? Those are the biggest questions. Kind of like why are we on this crazy rock floating in space? Like this is nuts. Like what's the purpose behind this? But if it's very just short-term questions of like, oh, I just need to do like this next bit or I just need to like make money or like whatever else, it's like those don't take you so far, right? So the people who ask those people who have the desire and they ask those big questions, they're usually asking for a bigger reason. That's like they want to help people, they want to the situation happen, they want to become stronger. you know
Mm, no, 100%. And like, I feel like in order to actually grow, like you said, it's a choice. It's what you do with these difficult times, and if you choose to learn from it or not. But your relationship to the unknown, so key. You in these times, there's nothing but how you're feeling, and there's nothing but the situation you're in, and it really takes trust and like you have to trust in something greater than yourself to feel okay stepping into the unknown.
yeah
Otherwise,
so
it's too scary. But it's the only way we grow.
yeah, we have our kind of like little us when we're as even as a kid, right? When we're born, we have this little world, we have our parents and that's all we know. Then as we're growing, um what teach us in the Empire stuff, it's the 12 physical dimensions, right? So we start out, everyone goes through the first four dimensions consecutively as we're expanding our awareness of just us to our parents, to our group, to our like society and our role in society. And that's the same thing with progression in a way, right? It's like our world is kind of in this comfort zone now. And to expand, we're going to expand into that unknown. So it appears at first the unknown can be scary, can be unsure just because it's unknown, right? It doesn't mean it's good or bad. It's just something we haven't done before, right? So like what you said, it's like we need trust, we need faith, we need hope to get to the next level, right? Because that next level is never going to necessarily agree with our current level. And that's why there's all this fear and resistance. And, I like to say when somebody's like, well, what do I get with, if I join a spiritual school or spiritual path, like, what are the fruits of it? And ultimately, it's like you reconnect to yourself. That's step one. Because when people are coming to learn this stuff, it reconnects them to themselves. And they say, oh, I'm at the center of what I'm creating. Then it reconnects them to God. So they're co creating with God and they have more faith to step into that unknown to say, okay, no matter what, I'm still going to be supported. I'm still going to have the power and faith to do this. And then through that, it starts connecting you with more aspects of life. It connects you with more of the subtle world, more people, more, there's more connection points. So life becomes more fulfilling. You know, so it's all, so like if anybody's saying, what does the spiritual path gives me? Ultimately, it's like relationships with yourself, divine, and others. You mentioned like the skincare and stuff, but what other rituals do you have? Because rituals, when you say rituals, same thing when you say occult. That's a really weird word for people. They
Yeah.
assume the worst. They assume it's just like weird, whatever. And like you said, it's like the occult is the hidden knowledge, right? That's what the word's for. Same thing with rituals, right? When you say rituals, rituals are to bring in the magic and the sacredness, but in a very practical way. Rituals are something we do consistently to get us a result, to build energy in something, right?
Mm.
So are there any rituals that you have in your day-to-day life that are very helpful for you?
So For me, it's very much like connecting to the magic within. I have my own theory about rituals and how it all, like everything is pretty much perfect for like hypnotherapy, like even down to the colors of like traditional like ritual things like candles that you light. It's like I don't know, it's just
All the
it all
correspondence.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
100%. But in the mornings, I always like to do a yoga. Like I'm really into my yoga, and then I do like a breathwork practice. So I like to be quite ritualistic with my meditations. And depending on what my intention is, I'll try to really curate that moment. Everything will be like it's very how do I say? Like if you were to look at it, it wouldn't look like a traditional ritual as per se, but I do like I light candles, always keep my intention in mind, and um if I want to meditate on a symbol or theme or have objects and things like that. I have I've got a drawer and it's got these things that mean things to me, like dirt from my old garden and things like that. But it's very important to me for people to know that like it's not like some
Yeah.
craziness. It's literally it's just to connect to the feeling with that.
But yeah, you can like you just did it. You can see it in your expression. You're like you're thinking about it. You're tuning into what that is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's literally just about the feeling. And I think if this was more understood, it would be more normalized. I mean, sentimental people, that's ritualistic. You know, the people with the big scrap books and
Yeah. Yeah.
um they put
Well, it's like the memories that tune into that feeling, the feeling of joy or love, or the families that are either here or has passed. Like you said, like you could see your expression when you're thinking about the dirt. You're like, oh, I have that because it tunes me into that like good feeling, that memory of that garden, right? And yeah, that's the thing of rituals is rituals are there to tune into that energy to get the result that you want, right? If you're meditating on a symbol or maybe there's a picture, because there's like spiritual rituals, but then we have our own individual rituals. Um, the candles, maybe the candles give you maybe there's a scent, maybe there's a taste, something that tunes you into that thing, and that's that thing you're trying to cultivate, right?
100%.
I think that's a good way to demystify this, like these weird words that people are like, oh, like what is that? Demystify that,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
also show them the magic and the essence behind that as well.
Like, I was thinking when I was explaining it, I was like, damn, like people are gonna think I've got like a drawer full of all these weird things in a weird way. But yeah, look, it's just for the feeling, and and it is about cultivating that feeling first, and then opening up to it. And it's just so amazing now that even the psychology and neuroscience side of things is catching up to that. And
Yep. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's funny.
yeah, like everything's just aligning in that way.
I would say I was showing you one of my teachers, right? She's the physicist. She takes the spiritual perspective and the scientific perspective in her teachings. And yeah, it's funny because I look at science as science could be maybe thousands of years behind, but it's like it just reconfirms what the spiritual people already knew, which is cool because then it makes it more practical and then like more people adopting like, okay, cool, this is a normal part of life, right? I think that's the coolest thing of like taking these very mystical things and carrying the energy behind that so you can infuse that into life, right? Because like if everybody, I mean, everybody has rituals. Everybody, the most basic ritual most people do, hopefully, is like brushing their teeth. That's a ritual to take care of themselves, right? Because they want a certain result, right? Or like the gym can be a ritual because it makes you feel a certain way. And what we do, like you said, it's like life is all about feeling, and it's what
Mm,
we do. It's thoughts, feelings, actions. It's like first have, mentalism, a lot of mentalism. First, having those positive thoughts, you can make create positive feelings. You take positive actions, and yeah, it's all about feelings. So, another thing is like, well, what's the spiritual stuff? It's energy. It's like the stuff that you can feel. When people say, "Oh, I don't know how," that spiritual stuff is weird. I don't have any spiritual senses. I'm like, have you ever walked in a room? You could feel like somebody you're close with, or a friend or family. You could feel their energy, right? And they're like, yeah. I was like, that's part of it. It goes beyond the mind. It goes beyond just the logic, right? It tunes into something higher. Yeah, I think now everybody listening to this podcast is just going to rush to the spiritual schools, and hopefully somebody does.
Yeah, I think also to live ritualistically and to for it's like integrating your like mental world with your physical world, but on a deeper level. And I think you have to be really quite conscious of these inner layers of your mind. If that makes sense. Um, like you wouldn't be able to connect to it if you weren't connected to yourself on a deeper level.
Yeah, and that takes, I mean, going back to meditation, that's a really good thing. It's like the voice is always there, the energy is always there, the potential is always there, right? Energy from God is always, the universe is always, it's always flowing into us. But what happens is we end up cutting ourselves off. And you can, I don't know if most people pick up on this or not. If you walk down the street and you're just paying attention to who's, passing on the street, you can almost tell if somebody's connected or disconnected by their energy, right? Somebody who's connected energetically is more uplifted, more aware, more in tune. The person who's more disconnected might have their head down, might be a little sad. It's like the energy is always there. It's just we have to get out of our own way and be able to, understand how to reconnect to that and how to utilize that to get us moving forward.
Being open to receiving.
What's that?
Like being open to receiving, people are
Yeah.
in their own worlds or
Yeah. And the miracle's right in front of everybody. It's like they're just not open to receive it. That's the thing. So yeah, that's why all this stuff is like, that's why I love this stuff and I'm passionate about it, because it's once somebody's able to reconnect to, reconnect to the divine, reconnect to themselves, they get out of suffering, and life, like we said, life just becomes a lot more sacred, a lot more enjoyable, and a lot more fun. It becomes more of a game rather than like uh, almost like a prison sentence that some people might be in.
yeah, it's when life's coming from you rather than at you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah,
just
much
life goes
nicer.
away. Yeah, that's why, I mean, there's so much to it, but it's like, just to sum it up, it's like life just becomes so much greater when there's so much more intention behind how you carry yourself, how you live your life, how you connect with people. Like, you really focus yourself and put yourself in that direction. And yeah, I think it starts with listening to the inner voice that we've been denying all the time, the one that's just kind of like in the background. Like, it's really the feeling, right? Because I know a lot of people, when they start their spiritual path, it doesn't necessarily make sense to their mind. It's just like an inner knowing, a feeling that's like, they're like, I don't know why I'm taking this next step, but I'm doing it. I'm just going to trust myself. And then they end up aligning with that. And then that's when life really starts progressing. Right. Many people I love doing this podcast because it's a similar story. Everyone is like, when my life started getting better, it was when I started listening to myself, when I started listening to that voice of like saying that thing that it kept telling me what to do, and I kept denying it. And once I actually listened to it and tuned into myself and felt that and took those steps, that's when stuff started taking off. But before, that was all sort of chaos and confusion before, you know? So it's really, quieting the mind, meditating, creating that space, you're able to receive that thing, and then, taking action on that, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it does take stepping into that little by little to be able to really trust the process and tune into these own like inner cycles that we have.
Yeah, it's like baby steps. It's a muscle like anything else, right? If this isn't a normal part of life, then it's something we have to cultivate. It's something we have to take, a step by step process, like taking those baby steps, like going in there consistently. And maybe it's meditation. Maybe somebody starts by meditating 5 minutes, then 10 minutes, then 20 minutes, right? And I always relate this back to the gym, because a lot of people are like, "Oh, are you a personal trainer?" I'm like, no. I can be looked at as like a spiritual trainer in a way, but the same sense as we have to go in the gym, build muscle, we have to go in the spiritual gym and build our spiritual muscles to
It's
That
funny because the how the brain works as well. It like
yeah,
triggers the same pathways and makes them stronger.
yeah. So like if we want to rewire our brain, it doesn't just happen just like that. We have to, it's a consistent action, and then we have those new neural pathways, and that just becomes it's like, it just becomes second nature. It just becomes automatic, right? And we're talking a lot about the conscious and the unconscious mind. When we're living life ritualistically and with intention and tuning into those things, that starts, rewiring us, creating a new reality for us. And that just becomes who we are. It's like, our default is those higher aspects. And it doesn't become such a struggle. It's because we become just like muscles. If you're in there, you can only lift 100 pounds and you train, then you can lift like 200 pounds, right? And it's like that becomes your new easy, your new normal. And it's the same thing with the spiritual path. So yeah, what's that?
I was gonna say I think it's so interesting. Like the practice of mantras and like repeating thoughts over that you want to be able to connect to, but maybe you can't connect right away. Like I don't know, I have a goal to like there's a goal I want to reach and I want to affirm that I'm gonna reach that goal. And you can affirm the words over and over and then eventually like you end up emotionally connecting to it. Because like the way that I see it is like our brains and our thoughts and the way that it's wired, it's like a skeleton to our emotions. I don't know if that makes sense because it's like it's just information, and if we can keep affirming these things, it's like we're allowing space for them, and then eventually you can emotionally connect.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's like going back to what you keep saying. It's like it's the feeling, right? So these symbols, these mantras, it's all cultivating that feeling. So we have that feeling inside, and then we can experience that outside. It's all like this whole conversation. That's what it is. It's building the feeling so we can experience that, and we can have those parts of us, in our life, our day to day life. Right. It's all the teachings, all the symbolism, all the having a little bit of dirt from an old garden in our drawer. It's all tuning into the feelings so we can develop those aspects. That's yeah. See, that's where a lot of people will get stuck. And then like once you flip our way of doing things upside down, we can tune into the essence of that first. Like we were saying, it's like that thing, you want that thing because it's going to give you that feeling, but like, why not have that feeling first? Because then you can have that thing no matter if you have that external thing or not. You can take that energy and go create it and experience it. Right.
Having the feeling makes it easier to connect to what it is you actually thought you wanted in the first place that was going to give you that feeling.
Yeah, exactly. And then you realize it's like, oh, it's just, I have it now. I don't need to seek it. I don't need to be so desperate for it anymore. Well, cool. I mean, we covered a lot of really cool stuff, and I think we accomplished the mission of having people diving into that stuff that people don't quite understand, the spiritual stuff. It's kind of like, okay, like I've heard a few things. It's interesting, but I don't really know it. So hopefully now people can reach out to us or pick up a book or go and take those steps, tune into themselves, and see what's next for their progression. So, is there anything you wanna leave for the viewers, or how they can connect with you, or anything like that?
So if you want to connect with me, maybe a one-to-one meditation session, intuitive reading, you can check out my website, perspective.net, tongue twister, or Misia, Misia Welters on Instagram. And yeah, that's it.
Cool, awesome. Appreciate you coming on.
No,
Thank you.
thanks for having me.
Of course.